ना करो सुनो मोरी बात ना करो
I'm Sandeep Ranade. I call myself the Geek Gayak because I'm a Hindustani classical vocalist and a software engineer as well. And I've worked on a lot of different passion projects, some of which I will talk about today. One of them is Naad Sadhana, which is an app that I've been working on. And it combines my geek and my Gayak together.
What got you into tech and music as a kid?
It was my grandmother who realized that I had this affinity towards music when I was very young, 10 days old. And it turns out that I started my riyaz, my music practice very early on because I would cry a lot as a baby. And the only thing that would quieten me down was when she put music on the radio. And so I started learning music very early on when I was 4.5. And I was also very passionate about problem solving. So software engineering came very naturally to me because my dad is a software engineer. And so he taught me. At the 12th grade point, I had been continuing both my musical journey and my sort of academic journey. And there was a point when there was a fork in the road, and I realized that I wanted to do both and two careers full time. And you can imagine the reactions that this decision got. But I decided to continue on because I was so passionate about both of these things. And so I did my bachelor's in computer science and started doing proper riyas. The problem was that it is said that to become a good singer, you need at least 8 to 10 hours a day of vocal practice. By the same token, it would take about 8 to 10 hours of academic practice as well to become a good software engineer. Now, this was not sustainable, and I did try my best. I would get up at 3 in the morning and do my vocal practices, then go off to college. But I quickly became sleep deprived. So I realized that there has to be a way that I can optimize both of these practice times down. Even if I get it down by a factor of 2, if I half it, I should be able to survive. And there were a lot of inspirational ideas that helped me to be smart about being lazy. And a lot of algorithms, you will see this, where you take an algorithm and you optimize the runtime. It does the same task, but it does it in a different way that changes the time characteristics of that algorithm. The best example is bubble sort and quick sort. So bubble sort is a sorting algorithm. It sorts numbers or data. Quick sort is way faster. So that was an idea that really inspired me. And I started to find what I call smart cuts, not shortcuts, smart cuts in from ideas in different domains like neuroscience and learning theory and software testing and combinatorics, discrete mathematics. And over the next many years, I was slowly able to compress 10 hours of vocal practice down to 1 hour. And now I have a 15-minute version, which is like a very, very powerful workout. So that Naad Yog was what allowed me to become the Geek Gayak, because it allowed me through every milestone of my life. I was able to continue doing serious vocal practice and whatever else that I was doing. And so this helped me when I was in the US. I did my master's in Johns Hopkins University. I joined Microsoft, then several other companies, and then Google. And through all of that, through getting married, now through having kids, all of that, it made it possible to survive that. Just the time management of it.
So then why did you leave Google and Microsoft for music?
When I went to the US, I had this deep feeling inside of me that I will learn, I will grow, I will experience, and then in about a decade, I will come back to my own country. Because that is what I wanted to do. I wanted complete freedom to do what I want to do and what I love doing, and also to give back to my own home country in some way, to leave a legacy in terms of contribution to Indian music, Indian culture, perhaps something else. And that is what prompted me. I came back after 11 years. In 2015, I came back. A lot of people told me that that's a big mistake, that you should not leave a lucrative job at Google. My wife was at Apple, and we both quit our jobs and came back to India. It's been 10 years now, and we have zero regrets. We're doing what we enjoy doing, And that's all we're doing.
What inspires your music and its modern twist?
So I consider myself to be like an oyster. So if there is a grain of sand that goes into the oyster and starts to irritate it, it will create a coating around it, and that becomes a pearl. So for me, music has become like that as well. It's very therapeutic. If there is a deep emotion, some turmoil, trauma, it could be a positive emotion also. Very strong, happy reaction to something. Music allows me to create a coating around that emotion, encode it in a composition, in a song, and then as I sing it, as I express the song, I come back to equilibrium. So it's basically an event that leads to an emotion, that leads to coming to terms with that emotion, that then gets encoded as a composition, and then letting it go, and then equilibrium. So music is very therapeutic for me. And I compose around topics that are relevant to me in this time in my life as an average person living an average life. Those things that all of us will experience. I have songs about. So I have everything in from relationships, so romance and fighting in relationships, to apologies, to nature, to spirituality, to digital addictions and detoxification from social media, to things like I had a vertigo attack and I sang about it, and that helped me release that trauma. My mouth became dry, my heart was pounding, and I was panicking. Ghoom, 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 jana, ghoom, ghoom, ghoom. To frustrations when you experience a flight that was delayed. So, small, large, mundane, significant things in life. Then there is a composition on Wi Fi that has become a primary need. So, Anna Vastra Nivara Wi Fi, there is a composition that I made on that.
भोजन बसन भुवन मान है, भोजन बसन भुवन मान है, वायफाय नहीं आयु वृथा कौन समझे, मोरे मन की व्यथा कौन समझे, मोरे मन की व्यथा.
There was a time when we were very new parents and our twins refused to eat for many hours, and we got very desperate and anxious. And there was a composition that basically said, please eat something to my kids. And they ate after that.
ललना तुम खाना खा लो ना, ललना तुम खाना खा लो ना, ललना.
All the way to letting things go, mindfulness, and then the coronavirus, and then everything in between.
So then what's the story behind Na Karo Na Karo? That's a song, right? That you composed.
Yes, it was March of 2020, and it was a dark time for everybody because the virus was basically destroying everything. And I felt very depressed, I felt very helpless. But I wanted to spread some optimism that we will survive, and also some tips on how to survive the pandemic. And what better way than to put them in a song? Because a song is a few lines, but it goes from my heart to the audience's heart directly. So I created a song. It was therapy for me as well. And it was a traditional classical, Hindustani classical melody in Rag Basant. But there was a twist to it because there was some geeky puns, some humor in it, some English words, and it was all about a virus.
ना करो सुनो मोरी बात, ना करो सुनो मोरी बात, ना करो सुनो मोरी बात, न मिलाओ हाथ हम जोड़त हाथ.
And so I was not very sure whether to send it out in the world or not. But the intention was fully positive, and I decided to send it to a few friends on WhatsApp. So I recorded my song, my app accompanied me. Nad Sadhana uses artificial intelligence and figures out accompaniment in real time on multiple instruments. So it feels like a live orchestra. When I was stuck at home with no other accompaniment, I quickly recorded myself and sent it out to a few friends on WhatsApp. And then in 15 minutes, things changed completely. I got a call from my Guruji, late Padma Vibhushan Sangeet Martand Pandit Jasraj. And he said, Basant mein bahar lai. And then he said, कम से कम 300 लोगों ने तुम्हारा गाना मुझे भेजा है. I had not sent him my song yet. And then he asked me, तबला बहुत बढ़िया बजा है, किसने बजाया है? And so that was like the most beautiful thing that my guru could have said in that moment. I started to basically become very emotional. And as if this was not blessing enough, a few minutes later, I realized that my video had gone not only viral, but it had reached A.R. Rahman, who put it up on his Instagram. And at this point, my body lost all sensation. So a song about the virus went viral.
What's the Naad Sadhana? And how does it help musicians?
Naad Sadhana was born out of a problem that I wanted to solve. And there was a student of music who had learned for 8-9 years before she came to me from other people. And she asked me for help. She said, I'm very frustrated. I'm not progressing. So will you please help me? And I said, sure, let's take a look. And it became very clear that she had major problems in identifying notes. Now, after 9 years of learning, this is not what I've expected. This was surprising to me. And of the 12 notes in the octave, she was missing over 6-7 notes. So this was even more mind-blowing. So first thing I got her to do was to go to a doctor, because I wanted to figure out if she's tone deaf or not. Tone deafness is the inability to distinguish between two different frequencies. If you're tone deaf, there is nothing anybody can do about it. Music is not quite possible in that case. But she was not tone deaf. It's a very, very rare thing. Very, very few people have this. So I realized that it's not a hardware problem, it's a software problem. So basically, she had gotten into the wrong habits and she had repeated things which were incorrect without guidance many times. And so her brain was not able to do the right thing. So now, how do you fix this? Now, going back to the Gurukul era of things, 100 years ago, undeniably the Gurukul ushered in the golden age of classical music. Today, Gurukuls are becoming extinct, very, very rare. Few Gurukuls are left. Today's time also doesn't allow for Gurukuls for everybody, neither for the teachers nor for the students. So then how does one fix this? Because when you go to Gurukul, you are in front of your Guru for 8-10 hours a day, singing or playing. Any mistake that you make is immediately corrected. So you will never really get into bad habits. You will converge to the perfect habit very quickly. Now, today what is happening is students are learning for say an hour a week. And then they'll go off and practice by themselves without any guidance for 6-7 times a week perhaps or more. This is very dangerous, because if the mistakes are repeated without realizing that you made a mistake, it's going to become habit. And unlearning is 100 times more difficult than learning new things. I was looking at a very extreme case, but I realized that she represents a much larger problem that is happening today. And I wanted to fix it. And I realized the way to fix it would be to have an app that basically guides her practice whenever she sings or plays. In this case, sings. It was 2017. I thought there must be an app for this. But I was mistaken. There was no app. And so I decided to create one myself. And this was my very first mobile app, iOS app that I'd created. And it was in a topic that I'd never really looked at deeply before. Digital signal processing. Human pitch analysis turned out to be a very difficult problem as well. Psychoacoustics, which is the psychology of perception of sound. Very fascinating thing. But it was a deep dive in things, and I realized that I can't use any of the existing algorithms for human pitch analysis because it has to run on a mobile device. So the battery expectations, the performance has to be very high with very low power utilization. So I invented algorithm after algorithm, and finally my 9th algorithm was correct, was accurate, was fast, and was battery efficient. So I put together a very simple user interface, sent her a beta version, and in 2 weeks, she improved from a score of 5%, which is a really, really low score. And people by instinct will get say 30-40%, because there is an instinct for musical notes. From 5%, she came to 80% in 2 weeks. And more importantly, she stayed above 80% ever after that, which really meant that the app had successfully rewired her brain. And this was how Naad Sadhana was born. Naad is the essence of music, of sound. And sadhana is systematic, dedicated, endless practice. This was my first version with just the tuner. Then I realized that I have an app that can hear music, can listen to music, can identify pitch. I wanted it now to do more. I wanted it to analyze emotions, the song parts, the melody, harmony, rhythm, and create and play beautiful music in real time on multiple instruments. Why? Because as a concert musician, as a concert singer, I sing live, I improvise on the spot, I create music in real time. I am accompanied by tabla, harmonium, other instruments who are also creating this beautiful musical dialogue with me. So, Sawal Jawab, there is a Jugalbandi aspect, there's a collaboration aspect of things, which really is the magic of a stage performance. You get to interact with them, you get amazing energy, and the energy only increases because it becomes sort of a crescendo of increasing energies through that entire performance on the stage. When you practice at home, this is missing. And especially after the lockdown, access to accompaniment, live accompaniment became very, very rare. And there are places in the world where there is no live accompaniment possible right now. So I realized that if I want to solve the problem of live accompaniment, it has to be indistinguishable from human accompaniment as much as possible. I know this is not really possible, but as close to it as I can, because when you practice at home, then you experience the same magic that you experience on stage, which means that when you are on stage, you will actually be able to go further. So when you practice here and you go to stage, this should not be happening because this becomes problematic. This will induce fear. You want to practice more beforehand and then go on stage and you'll be comfortable, right? When you talk about computer science and software engineering, you say that the production environment and the test environment should be as closely related. If a test environment is very different and you put things in production and things break, you will not be able to figure out why. Not quickly either, at least. So that was my idea. This was the first time that I was entering into the realm of artificial intelligence, machine learning, neural networks, genetic algorithms. And I realized all of this is useless for me because these were problems that were never solved before. Things like creativity in a rag, in tal, analysis of emotions, all of these things were unsolved. No existing model helped me. So I started to invent things. I was creating homegrown solutions for these things. And over time, I realized that I amassed a set of solutions which were so different from what the world calls artificial intelligence. I decided to call it artistic intelligence because I was teaching it like it was a student of mine. With all of those ideas, I was able to create first a Swaramandal, which accompanies, it listens to me and then plays automatically. But it's not a loop, it is live, it is intelligent, it is creative, it is artistic. Then Tanpuras, then Tabla, and then now I have 27 instruments, drums and guitars and strings and percussion instruments, lot of things. So this was the second problem that the app Naad Sadhana solves. Then when I recorded my Na Karo Na Karo video, I didn't have any recording capability in the app. So my setup was quite complex. There were multiple devices, wires, cables, connectors. And it took me 2 hours to record, mix, and publish a 2-minute song. So I realized I can be lazy once again. And so I implemented an entire multi-track audio and video recording studio right in the app. And to save even more time, I implemented automatic intelligent mixing. So I can now go from recording to mixing to publishing very rapidly, very easy, very fast on a single device with a single app. And so it saves me a great deal of time for every recording that I make now. So this was the third problem that I solved. And the app is also now accessible fully to people without sight, to people who are colorblind, and to people who have partial hearing impairment as well.
And you also win an Apple Design Award, right? Can you please share a bit about that?
In 2021, Naad Sadhana won the Apple Design Award for innovation. I've always been passionate about user design, user experience design, UI, logo and graphic design. And I designed the app in a way where it would feel very human, that the UI would be very minimalistic, in fact. So you need to tell the pitch, the rag, the tal, the tempo to the app. And when you start and stop, everything in between, the app will do automatically. artistically, beautifully. So every improvisation, all of the tukdas and the harkats and the chords that it will create, the swaramandala that it will play, will all be creative in the rag and tal. It will be spontaneous. It will change every time based on what you are singing or playing, and so it feels like a very live musical dialogue. And so the UI is basically largely invisible. And Apple must have thought that this was innovative, and they gave me the prestigious Apple Design Award. And in fact, this is a big deal personally to me as well and to the country, because I am only the second Indian to ever win this award in the history of the award. And this is for the first time that it has been given for an app about Indian music and culture. And so, as an Indian musician and developer, the fact that Apple recognized as solo developers hobby app in a niche area is truly mind blowing and truly means the world to me.
What's tough about teaching Indian classical music worldwide?
So, as I said, like Gurukuls were the gold standard. They were the golden, they ushered in the golden age of Indian music. And today, with them going extinct, we have to figure out how can we get the best features of Gurukul in the 21st century with the current constraints of our lifestyles. And so the first thing was the tuner. Tuner is very critical because guidance when you sing, whenever you sing or play, is so critical to establishing the right habits so that you never make a swar error again. Your swar sthan, the swar positions, are precise every time. And that is a critical foundation for any musician. Live accompaniment is another one because in Gurukuls you would have resident expert instrumentalists who would accompany students every day. And so you got used to all of those little nuances and the beauty and the spontaneity of that accompaniment without getting distracted, without getting afraid that, oh, what will happen now? Only then can you experience the magic, the beauty of that shared experience. And so that was the second problem that the app solves. And Nad Yog, which is my optimized vocal workout, solves the third problem of time. Because today, doing a full time career in music is risky, and people have multiple hobbies, they're good at multiple things. Why not explore multiple things? Why not do what you're passionate about, even if it is multiple things? And I did two things, perhaps three things now. Geek guy, some people call me geek guy guru now because I've been teaching for over 20 years. But why limit yourself to those things? The next generation is smarter, they're running on better hardware, there is better software now, there's a lot of exposure early on. So perhaps the next generation could do three things, four things well. And so Nad Yog helps compress down the time without compromising on the quality of the practice. And that was the third thing. There is a fourth thing, which is I'm working on that. It is a set of videos, a library of videos that will sort of help students learn in a Gurukul kind of way. And yet those four things are not enough. There is always the Guru Shakti component where you have to learn either face to face or in person from a guru. If it is a once a week occurrence, then all of those other things will supplement that through the entire week and keep you on track. But that in person learning or face to face learning is so critically important. With those four things plus the face to face teaching, I think we can take music successfully in the 21st century without it falling backwards. And there is a danger that it might do that now. So, with a concerted effort, with all of these things, with awareness of the problems that technology will create, I think we can bring it into the 21st century in a successful way.
Sir, do you got a favorite teaching memory as you have been teaching for past 20 years?
Been a lot of memories where my students have delighted me with original things, original questions, curiosity, imagination. But there was one memory that was different from all of these memories that really made me appreciate how different each student can be. There was a student of mine, I was teaching her Guzri Todi rag. And after a few, she had already learned several rags, but she said, I don't like how Guzri Todi looks. I said, surely you mean how Guzri Todi sounds? And she says, no, I can see it. So I said, describe to me what the rag looks like. And she said the shades of brown and yellow ochre and dark shades, grey shades. So I said, okay, describe to me a rag that you enjoy. So she said, oh, Bageshri. I love Bageshri. And it's green and pink and purple and sky blue and beautiful. So I suddenly realized I'd read about this, never really met a person with this condition. It is called synesthesia, which is a neurological condition where senses get cross-linked. So if you hear a sound, it will trigger a color memory or a color sense. Some people taste numbers, for example. Some people might smell words, concepts. This was such a fascinating condition. And I said, are you synesthetic? And she was so happy because I was the first teacher that she has had that was able to recognize and know about this to begin with and recognize it. And I said, let's try something. So I had her basically color each note in the rag to what she saw or what she felt. And it was a very sort of depressing set of colors. So we decided to change two of them, because then if we change two of those notes to sort of pleasant colors, then the entire landscape will get more pleasant. So every time she practiced a particular note, I would have her open basically a full screen color of a particular shade. So any color that she enjoyed. So I think we converted the Komal ray to a pink, and we converted one more note to a greenish shade. And that was sufficient. And with that association, she was able to change the neural pathways that led into that. And she was actually able to enjoy the rag again. So this was a very interesting memory that was very illuminating, eye-opening, and fun.
How's tech changing Indian classical music nowadays?
Technology has two sides. There is the pros and the cons. And a lot of pros of technology today, if you want to learn sitting in a different continent, you can. But on the other hand, you might not get enough guidance, and so that might lead into problems. The well-intentioned Tanpura machines and tabla machines created later problems in the student's journey. So they got used to a certain pattern that repeated constantly. And when they listened to live accompaniment, that pattern didn't match what they were used to. And so they started going off track. They started getting panicky. And this is a problematic situation. You can't be afraid of live accompaniment. You have to enjoy it and be very comfortable with it. So this technology created a problem, and the only way to solve this problem is by creating technology that is indistinguishable, as I said before, from human accompaniment. And that is what I've been embarked upon. There's a long way to go. It's not ever possible to reach that level. But even if you can get close enough where it feels that you're having a live conversation, musical conversation with the artistic intelligence, then that will be sufficient to train you to be able to create a spontaneous musical dialogue. Then there are a lot of other things. For example, Tanpura machines either created a mathematical representation of each string or recorded a sample from good quality Tanpuras. But that is still not sufficient, because the magic of the Tanpura is when these strings interact with each other as they are vibrating, creating sympathetic resonances, harmonic series. And this is where the concepts like Swayambhu Gandhar or the Rag Shruti in the Tanpura, this is where they come from. So the only way to actually recreate a realistic Tanpura sound is by simulating these interactions of these strings in real time, which I realized needed 40 different partial differential equations per string to be simulated and solved in real time. And so the app now does that. And that is why that Tanpura sound is so close to a real Tanpura. And so these are technology deficiencies that I'm trying to solve. Now, with recording and content creation, the app can create content at very high quality with very high level of orchestration with accompaniment, record it in multi-track audio and HD video, automatically makes everything, and you have a great deal of control over what happens. So your content creation time will go from several hours to minutes per video that you create or per audio that you create. So from a content creator's point of view, this will help them focus on what they do best and what they enjoy doing the most, and create high quality content at basically a fraction of the time required. So I think technology is certainly, if you look at it in the right way, if you approach it with the right intention, that it should not create a dependency. If it becomes a crutch for you, then it's a problem. So you have to create technology which enhances you. It should not be like self-driving cars where you forget how to drive, but like a flight simulator. When you don't have access to a plane, you practice on a very realistic flight simulator so that when you do get access to a plane, you not only survive, but you also enjoy the flight.
And sir, any advice for young musicians or techies?
The one thing I will say is that you have to embrace your true identity, and that will give you so much freedom from all of the anxiety and stress. So, for example, when I was a geek, I would hide my Gayak side. When I was a Gayak, I would hide my geek side because I wanted to fit in. And this created a lot of stress, a lot of identity crisis, and it was not healthy emotionally or physically. But there was a point when I realized that I am neither geek nor Gayak. I am geek Gayak. I'm a different species. I'm a combination. And when I embraced that identity fully, it not only felt amazing and light and liberating and fantastic, but it changed my life because I was able to see the world in a different way. I was able to incorporate my geek side and my Gayak side truly seamlessly into one thing. And so, the one thing that I will say is you should embrace your true identity, be true to who you are, and do what you enjoy doing, what you're passionate about, and things will fall into place.
Thank you so much for your guidance and for telling us about your journey. It means a lot. And I'm sure audience will also appreciate you coming onto this platform and telling us about your journey. Thank you.
It has been my pleasure. Thank you for wonderful questions that you've asked me. And I wish the best to you and your audience. And I'm sure they will go off and do amazing things in their own right.